Hi, I'm Alan Hills, and welcome to the College of St. Rose's movie review and discussion podcast series, Cutting to the Chase, brought to you by the Campus Radio Club, Radio St. Rose. We are now officially back in full swing. We've been on a brief 2-week hiatus due to some unforeseen scheduling conflicts, but we are back and better than ever, so let's get to it. I really wanted to do a podcast on the new Disney blockbuster, Mary Poppins Returns. I finally saw the movie 2 weeks ago, and it's just starting to leave theaters, but when I finally decided to see it, it was still playing in a lot of locations, and I was surprised since it had been a little over a month and a half, but still, I'm glad I decided to go see it because I was skeptical about it for a long time. I thought it was going to be a lousy, cash-grabbing sequel, but all my friends were saying nothing but good things about it, so I finally decided to see it, and I'm really glad that I did because it just turned out to be such a wonderful movie. I really loved it, and I have a record number right now of 3 guests to help me discuss the movie. I'm going to introduce them right now. My first guest is a communications major here at St. Rose with a concentration in film and new media, like me. She's the assistant equipment manager in the TV studio. She's the president of St. Rose Television, and she recently headlined her own satirical soap opera at St. Rose Television, Grades of Our Lives. She also happens to be my sister. She is Joyce Hills. Hey, Joyce, thank you for being here. It's great to have you finally doing one of these things.
Thank you.
I knew to give some kind of response like that. My second guest is also a communications major with a concentration in film and new media. And like me, she's a transfer student, and she's been here as long as I have, so that's pretty cool. She is Sara Mann. Sara, thank you for being here. It's great to have you on one of these, too. It's great to finally be collaborating like this.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And last but certainly not least, my third guest is a music industry major here at St. Rose with a concentration in voice. Her name is Alma Gonzalez. Alma, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to do this. I feel really excited to have a music student on the Mary Poppins Returns podcast, because it's a very musical movie, and I'm anxious to hear what kind of insight you have on it.
Yeah, happy to be here, and I really love musical theater, and I love all the songs within both the original Mary Poppins and this, so I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, speaking of the soundtrack, I like how all the songs were pretty new. They didn't try to copy anything from the original Mary Poppins. They made a lot of new melodies. They didn't try to make any unsuccessful repetitions of the first film songs, because I felt like, if they tried to do that, it wouldn't have worked again. And, we all love the first Mary Poppins film. I'm sure we all grew up with it. But, as we get older, we don't really want to watch it anymore because we watched it so many times as a kid. But what was great about Mary Poppins Returns is that, it gave us something new. And, that's why I loved it so much. I don't know what you guys think about that, but the soundtrack's pretty nice.
Yeah, that was my main speculation with the movie. At first I was like, how are they going to make this? Is it going to be similar to the first movie? And what are the songs going to be like, etc.? And I thought it would just be another lousy remake, because a lot of remakes and sequels nowadays are why are you making this? It's not needed, but this was really good in my opinion.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, those were the initial thoughts I had. I thought it was going to be lousy, but I had to put all that aside to go see it, and, it was really worth it. One of the best movies I'd seen that year, and definitely one of the most positive. It gave you a nice sense of positivity. It's the kind of movie that, really lifts your spirits, and I like that, and the direction was, pretty nice, too. I found it, really colorful. The dance sequences were great, but I thought overall, the film really is enough to, make you happy in a sense. Any thoughts on, your initial feelings toward the movie, what you anticipated before it?
I was in the same boat as you. I thought it was going to be a cash grab. Mary Poppins has this huge legacy, and a sequel has so much that it has to live up to as far as the original goes. And when I saw it, I was just okay. So it was something new in a lot of ways. I mean, some plot elements are definitely new, but there's a lot of callbacks to the original, and especially in the score. I mean, I'm all about listening to something that's so catchy and so memorable. And the people who wrote this score had a lot to live up to, because the Sherman Brothers, the original composers, just such catchy melodies. Spoonful of Sugar. It's just it's so catchy. You can sing it so easily. And so with these songs that came out, they had a lot to live up to. But when I found them in the movie, they had the right placement. It felt right. It felt comfortable. It didn't feel like a cheap song. It didn't feel like a cash grab pop song. A lot of musicals of this time, musical movies, it's very difficult to put a musical on screen. And to see this portrayed and done so well while also having big shoes to fill was so impressive to me. So
yeah, no, that's a good point you made. They really did have big shoes to fill, and they really pull it off. They really made nice songs. Curiosity, have you begun learning any of them for performance or anything at all? Have you touched them at all?
Well, The Place Where Lost Things Go,
yeah,
which is, I think it's nominated for an Oscar or something. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure. That was just such a heartfelt song, and I'd love to learn it. And The song at the end, like Nowhere to Go But Up, where like Angela Lansbury comes and like Angela Lansbury.
Oh my God, yeah.
If you're a theater fan, like, oh my God, like they talked about getting Julie Andrews in the spot, but I think putting Angela Lansbury instead was just such a good move. And then just all the songs, like the bathtub scene, and can you imagine that? Like Emily Blunt definitely doesn't have the same like vocal range as Julie Andrews did, but they wrote for her in the right way, and they really suited this like new Mary Poppins. So I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I will say, like, nothing will ever beat the original with, like, Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke, like, the original. But I remember after watching the movie, I went on Spotify and I just, like, listened to the whole soundtrack again.
So did I, yeah.
Because, like Alma was saying, so memorable. It's such a great soundtrack, and I just loved it, so.
I know, yeah, and you're right. Nothing beats the original. And speaking of, I loved Dick Van Dyke's cameo as well. I mean, did you see how he was dancing around? There was like he hadn't aged a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. That was a pretty nice scene in the movie, but
And I think in the movie I was confused at first because I think like Lin-Manuel Miranda, the actor name, he played Jack, so it wasn't Bert. I
Right.
thought he was playing a Bert, but apparently it's Jack. So I kind of was confused at first, but I still loved his acting and his singing because I loved his other stuff. He was in like Hamilton and like In the Heights and all that.
yeah, and I have to admit, I didn't think he really would be an appealing character, but I really liked Jack. Lin-Manuel Miranda was awesome, and, the lovely London skies.
Yeah, like the opener.
Yeah,
Right.
he really has an enthusiasm for performing. His Cockney accent was, amazing. And I just did an episode of A Night at the Movies where I talked in Cockney throughout the whole time because I just had to do it. It was super fun. But yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda was awesome. And going back to your point, I love how Angela Lansbury was in it. She's perfect for that kind of movie. And pretty much every cast member in that movie was perfect, for the Mary Poppins universe. They had Colin Firth, they had Julie Walters, Ben Whishaw, Emily Mortimer, and there was another one. Who was it? Obviously Dick Van Dyke, and the other one can't come to mind. But yeah, every cast member in this movie was like, and Meryl Streep.
Oh yeah.
It's not a movie or a musical till Meryl Streep's in it.
Yeah.
That's what I say. But yeah, she was funny. They gave Mary Poppins another relative, and for sure that there's more than one Mary Poppins type person out there. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, I kind of saw this movie as something everybody could enjoy, adults and kids. I'm 23 years old, and yet the movie just lifted my spirits. I enjoyed every minute of it. That's hard to do in a movie these days because, you don't want to waste time with something is not going to entertain you. Sometimes you go to see a kid's movie if you think it's going to lift your spirits, which I think is the case with the upcoming How to Train Your Dragon film, which I also plan to see and review. So I think Mary Poppins Returns is a good example of a movie that can, appeal to everybody. And, everyone loves a good musical, when it's done right, when it's well shot, when it's vibrant. This movie was also kind of colorful as well. Like, it wasn't too dreary, even though we're in 1900s London. It was like 1900s, right? They had like, cars and stuff like that, but...
On the subject of Mary Poppins getting a relative, I thought it was interesting how they showed us a little bit more of her mindset and who she was. We didn't get that too much with the original, and it was very subtle this time, and I thought it was really interesting. So when the kids go into the bathtub and we get to see her alone for a second, she's being very, very secretive around them, just telling them that everything is nonsense. But when they dive into the tub and she's genuinely excited to go in, I thought that was really interesting. And then later, when the kids run up the stairs and they spy on Colin Firth for a while, and we see that she sees them, and she just lets it happen. Like, she either expected it or she wanted that to happen. I thought it was interesting that we got to see a little bit more into her mindset, and it didn't really answer any questions, but it made us wonder, what are her motivations and what necessarily is her backstory? Because it's not something we ever really get to look at least not in the musical history. So I thought that was pretty cool that they threw that in there.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I can understand why in the original, the filmmakers didn't dive into that so much because, in the 1960s, just seeing all of the revolutionary things in the original Mary Poppins musical alone, that was revolutionary enough for audiences, that it doesn't need to be explained, but we're all advanced media consumers now. We want to know how things came to be. So I like that point you brought up, Joyce, on how, Mary Poppins is a wise person. It definitely seemed like she had everything planned in advance. That's very intelligent. I can't believe I didn't come up with that because I just mentioned every other fundamental factor, but that's really good. She does seem to have everything planned in advance, but and giving her the cousin there definitely helped expand on where she comes from a little bit, if you know what I mean, but...
It was also hilarious.
Yeah,
It was
It
very
was.
funny.
yeah,
I
it was.
enjoyed
I didn't expect it to be very funny as well, but it was. Meryl Streep is very talented, although I think it's not a movie or musical till she's in it. But she is still very talented. But she was Into the Woods, right? That was a
Yeah.
I haven't seen
she
Into the
was-
Woods. but-
Oh, you have to, because like there's Mamma Mia, Meryl Streep, which is no. Then there's Into the Woods, Meryl Streep, and you're like, who is this? Is this the same person? And then you see it in Mary Poppins Returns. You see her like just doing so well again. Like it's just nice to see that Meryl Streep's on the up with the musical movies. But what I really am interested in is like how well Emily Blunt does, because with the role of Mary Poppins, it's not like, going off of what you said, it's not what's said, it's what's unsaid. And you know, Emily Blunt adds like to me some depth to the role just by like some of the smirks and the looks that she gives. Like when you see the original Mary Poppins, like you see Julie Andrews, like she does a great job, obviously, otherwise there wouldn't be such a legacy. But you don't see that like step back necessarily. Like there's a lot of smiling, and she's still very like strict with the kids, but I feel like it comes out more with Emily Blunt, and I really like that direction a lot more. Like I really think it suited Emily Blunt's like character. I think it suited this new Mary Poppins. The stakes are a little bit higher. Things are more serious with the mother's passing in this movie. So
Yeah.
it's just like I think it fit so much better for this film than if she tried to just emulate Julie Andrews the entire way through, which I respect that they like made that decision to like veer off a little bit, which I really appreciated. So.
Yeah, that's a good point, because my initial thoughts were that she really replicated Julie Andrews' original portrayal of Mary Poppins very well, but she did kind of make it her own a little bit, and it fit very well with the drama of the story. And the mother passing, I was surprised that there was a death mentioned in the storyline, considering that Mary Poppins appeals to a lot of kids, and you know, the kids like to watch Disney musicals, especially Mary Poppins. But yeah, Emily Blunt's Mary Poppins really fit for this movie, and considering Emily Blunt does a lot of dramatic movies, she doesn't do a lot of stuff like this, you know. And I was skeptical of her at first until I saw the trailer, and then I'm like, okay, this could actually work. She seems like she's pulling this off. I mean, if you think of all Emily Blunt's done, you know, A Quiet Place, The Adjustment Bureau, or what other movies she's done, they're all like fairly dark and dramatic, but I like how she's expanding her horizons and, you know, trying out new things. Yeah, her interpretation worked pretty well, and every other character was pretty good too. And but yeah, this movie was quite an achievement. And another point I wanted to bring up, a lot of the cast was pretty good too, and I like how they didn't try to do something weird with Bert either. They introduced a new chimney sweeper. You know, he got to like travel the world and have new opportunities, and I was really impressed with Jack. I really liked him. Lin-Manuel Miranda was pretty good. Ben Whishaw and Emily Mortimer, they were, you know, really good. They didn't try to act like, you know, the old what are the names, Michael and Jane from the first movie. You could tell that they had grown up. Their personalities had changed a little bit, but when Mary Poppins comes back, you know, they kind of went back to some of those old personalities, you know, so. But yeah, they didn't really try to copy the old film that much. They took it in some new directions. It was pretty cool. And the special effects were amazing, of course. Like the porcelain bowl I found particularly impressive, because, you know, it looked like porcelain a lot of the time, and it looked like they were actually walking on porcelain. You know, as they were walking, you could hear some clinking. It could have been a porcelain set for all we know, but either way, it was like kind of convincing. But
I like that part.
yeah, Cover Is Not the Book. That was a particularly fun
Oh,
song.
Yeah. I think that was like, with the whole porcelain thing and the scene and the Cover Is Not the Book and the Royal Dalton Hall and everything, I was so happy to see the hand-drawn animations like come back in such a new way. Like you were talking about how colorful the whole movie was, and I think that particular moment really stuck with me as far as like color and vibrancy, and then the energy of the song where Lin-Manuel is just like doing his little like patter song where he's like rapping sort of.
Yeah.
That was just like so much was put together, and I think it all worked so well, and it was such a nice callback without being like, that's overstaying its welcome. Like it was so nice to just see it, and in a world where nothing is hand drawn anymore, it's all like computer animation. It was so nice to see that again, at least for me. But.
Yeah, the fact that they brought back hand-drawn animation, it just goes to show what Mary Poppins means to everyone, even to this day. I mean, you know, especially the British. You know, I bet a lot of British people were involved in this movie. I mean, Mary Poppins is a huge British legacy, you know. And the hand-drawn animation is very special. I have seen a lot of modern things today where they did bring back the hand-drawn animation, but you don't see it too often. They could have used computer animation to their advantage, and they could have made it very unoriginal with that. But in order for us to still feel like it's the Mary Poppins universe, I felt that was the right choice. You know, there might be improvements in filmmaking and brilliant cinematography, but that's hardly enough to change the feel of something. But yeah, I really like how they did it. So yeah, the porcelain bowl was pretty effective. And as for the scene before that, where they go swimming through, can you imagine that? A lot of underwater sequences aren't really done that well. Even Aquaman was great,
so
but a little questionable. But yeah, that scene was really great. You could really feel what was going on. Triple Little Light Fantastic, I think, was my favorite part. The dancing chimney sweepers. They had this nice wide shot of them going down the cobblestone street. And the thing is, I brought this point up in my Night at the Movies episode. A lot of musicals, actually, no, a lot of older musicals, they only focus on the performers as opposed to the environments that they're in. But this musical really focused a lot on the beauty of the environments that they're in, and you could really feel the magic of where everybody was. And, it just kind of sucks you into that. And, not a lot of movies do that, and I think that's a real fault in filmmaking today. But that's why the Triple Little Light Fantastic scene was probably my favorite part. And it was long, too. Like, it didn't really end too quickly. It's like a 9-minute song. Like, sometimes I just skip to the end because I can't see any of the dancing.
It had a reprise, too. Like, it continued at the, end of the movie.
Right.
It continued with that song, too.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
it did. But,
yeah, and I think the communication between the environment and then the performers and all of that, that's so important for, long scenes like that. If you've watched the original Mary Poppins and you see the step in time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. That's like a 15-minute scene, and it's just nonstop. And
yeah,
I think it's more engaging with Triple Little Light Fantastic because it works with the environment. Like when you see Step in Time and you think about the context of when the movie was made, it's so impressive because they're doing tap and there's rooftops but as for scenery, it's mostly stationary. I mean, a few things move, but it's mostly stationary. And with this film, it's more engaging, and I think it's because it has to be because of the time period and everything.
Right.
But it's definitely welcome, and that's what you need in a Mary Poppins movie. You need that level of just baseline enjoyment where everything's just working so well off of each other. A big criticism that a lot of people have with Mary Poppins Returns is the plot elements, but I think that in the end, the thing that matters the most is the level of enjoyment you get from all the wonderful scenes in it, and I think that kind of outweighs some of the plot at times.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It does. What plot elements were people critical of? Was there one in particular that everybody hated?
People were critical of there being such high stakes and a chase scene mostly. The chase
yeah.
scene.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that.
Most people are like, Mary Poppins doesn't really need a chase scene.
No way.
But the people that did criticize that, they took it for what it was worth. They saw that people were that the writers were trying to go in a new direction, and they kind of accepted that. But yeah, and then they also had complaints about the death. Some people had complaints about it, but I definitely think that was kind of important to have. I think the stakes had to be bigger, otherwise you'd have a rehash of the same movie. I think it was kind of weird how they tackled the death at times.
Yeah.
Because it's we're going to talk about it, we're not going to talk about it, but it's comfortable, but it's not. And I think the songs handled it well, especially when Ben Whishaw sings his song. Oh my goodness, it was so emotional in the theater. I was just oh my goodness. And then like I said, when she sings The Place Where Lost Things Go, that's emotional too. But yeah, I think it got a little weird at times, but for the most part, it wasn't too much of an issue for me.
Yeah, I agree. And Ben Whishaw is a phenomenal actor. He just has to stand there to make you feel strong emotions. But I also think that the plot was enough of a shell to support everything else that it had going for it, and that's really all we needed. We just needed something to motivate the music, pretty much, and I think it accomplished that. The Big Ben part with the ladders, that was a little bit, that was borderline, but it was okay in the end, for me at least.
Yeah, I was ready to have a heart attack at the Big Ben part because I do not do well with heights. So yeah, but it goes back to your point, Alma, how the stakes were a little too intense at times, but it wasn't really enough to ruin the movie. But yeah, what were you gonna say, Sarah?
I was just gonna say the perspective they showed with when you're up there, it felt real. Because I don't like heights.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was ah.
Hence me almost having a heart attack. It did. I don't know how they made it feel so real, but
yeah.
But yeah, turning back Big Ben, you don't see that in a lot of movies. You usually see a lot of destruction-related elements when it comes to Big Ben. I mean, doesn't it explode in the Matrix, or is that another clock in the Matrix? Or am I thinking of Olympus Has Fallen? My point is they just do disastrous things with Big Ben in film. It's so awful.
There are many things that explode in the Matrix. Big Ben is probably one of them. No one's climbed it yet. Hugo.
True.
Oh, yeah.
He went up the inside of the tower, though, I think. So no one's taken it on from the outside before. So I guess that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Unique.
Yeah, no, yeah, that was
different.
definitely a unique scene. I could have done without it, but it was filmed very well. I like how they came up with the aspect of turning the clock back. Because I always forget that in London they really rely on Big Ben. Because Colin Firth wouldn't close the bank until at what time? Not midnight. That I hope it wasn't midnight. That's
I think
too.
it was midnight.
That's too generic. Oh my god! But still,
I think it was. Because it was
I
11. She turned it back to 11:55, I think.
11:55. Yeah, but still, it was a good reminder how the British rely on Big Ben, for their time. But, so yeah, that was a particularly impressive scene. But moving on from that, yeah, the fair scene at the end was really nice too. Nowhere to Go But Up, if that's the official title. That was a great song. But I think that was the most colorful scene in the movie. This nice green field and all the pink tents. I mean, I think that was the nicest scene in the movie. And of course you got Angela Lansbury there. I mean, who's done theater and she's done Disney films before. I don't know if Beauty and the Beast was her only Disney film.
She did Beauty and the Beast. She did this other film that's not so well known, Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I never saw it, but yeah.
Yeah, and then she's just done a lot of she's just big in the theater community. She's done a lot of stage plays and things like that. So she's definitely well known enough to the musical theater community and then probably the Disney community as well, just because of Beauty and the Beast and the
Yeah, of
legacy
course.
that has. But
Right.
yeah, and I think that song was the perfect way to start to wrap things up for sure, because it's you see Jane and you see Jack, and they
Yeah.
have a little story going on there, and that was cute. And then you hear these wonderful vocals, and usually children singing, it's a little dicey. It's a little dicey at
Oh, yeah.
times. But it worked out here. It worked out in the song. It was cute. Everyone had their little verse, and everything flowed so smoothly. And my favorite part, I think, about that song, and then just the score in particular, is they wrap some of the melodic themes from the original Mary Poppins in. They weave it in it's an instrumental riff or something like that.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful, and it's a nice callback to the original without being the original, and it's so wonderfully done. I really loved that.
I know it is a very beautiful callback. I will admit, though, Mary Poppins Returns reminded me of one other movie a little too much. The whole drama of it was, they had to save their home from being taken by the bank. They had to find the certificate to prove it and all this. So there's that, financial drama of the film. I don't know if you guys saw the movie Christopher Robin.
Yes. I was going to say that was very similar to that.
It was a little too similar, but still, I don't know
Yeah.
what you think of that. But, in Christopher Robin, Christopher Robin really had to struggle with his job, to keep it. He didn't really have to lose a house or anything, but he was losing his way. And they almost did in Mary Poppins Returns, but still, that similarity was just a little too present. I had a slight problem with that. I still think we needed it, but it was still a little too similar to Christopher Robin. I don't know if there's a trend going on in the studios right now, hey, we need to do this. Okay, I'll do it too. Those talks that go among people. You seen Christopher Robin at all?
I have not, but I've heard mixed things about it. Kind of weird, kind of cool. A lot of people thought it was sweet, from what I understood. But yeah, I think if they're kind of similar in that element, that's a little concerning, just because they've come out so close to each other. Well, I don't know how many years ago Christopher Robin was, but it's close enough to be in our mindset. So I think that little plot element, and then Mary Poppins, when it's you have all these colorful scenes, you have these serious scenes too, and these grounded scenes. And as everyone knows who's seen Christopher Robin, they try to have that serious element too. And I think when the serious elements kind of relate, it's easy to make a comparison. So yeah, from what you're telling me, I would wish that it would be different, but I haven't seen Christopher Robin, so I was kind of okay with it. I mean, the stakes for me were just kind of weird at times, but
Yeah.
But it's I think for what it was, it worked. For what it was, I think if it could be rewritten, I wouldn't really know what direction they would go in other than the banks. But yeah, I think the way they did it, it was good enough to suffice, and that the other parts were so enjoyable that it kind of made up for it. So.
Yeah, no, it really did, and but yeah, I highly recommend Christopher Robin. By the way, but I will say this: I think Mary Poppins Returns was, I think, a little more successful in a positive way. Christopher Robin is a good movie, but I will admit, you almost forget it's a Pooh movie at times. It's highly dramatic. I mean, so dramatic for a Pooh movie. I mean, in Mary Poppins Returns, you feel a sense of hope, but Christopher Robin, he really had to face, a lot of his demons, to meet his old friends again in the 100-Acre Wood and reconcile with them and his family. So I think the emotional stakes were a little more intense in Christopher Robin, where Mary Poppins Returns, I think they are purely financial, because in Christopher Robin, his relationships with everyone he loved were on the line. So I think Mary Poppins Returns was a little more positive. And Joyce, you have not seen Christopher Robin yet, have you?
No, I have not.
Yeah, you still need to see that. It's a really good movie. You're a big Pooh person, right? You were.
Pooh is my very old friend from childhood, yes. I have a strong connection with Pooh.
I think we all do. He's a silly old bear. He really is. But yeah, still, Mary Poppins was still, positive enough that, the stakes didn't matter. And I want to see more movies like that, where there's very little stakes and, it's just sweet enough to leave you satisfied. And the thing is, there have been discussions for a third film, because Mary Poppins, and I didn't even know this before, there is like a series of books, and they want to bring back Emily Blunt to reprise Mary Poppins, and I think they might do new things. And I don't know how you guys think about this. I'm definitely anxious to hear some insight, but I don't know if that would work. If the books are good enough, maybe it could work, but since we've been so used to it for 50, 60 years, I don't know if we're going to like it.
Yeah. I think, and I only know this because I saw Saving Mr. Banks, which is kind of chronicles the writings of the Mary Poppins book and then how it was turned into a film.
Right.
Obviously, the film is told in a Disney-esque way because it's a Disney movie, so they want to portray Disney in the right. But basically what happened was, when the books were written, P.L. Travers was not so keen on Mary Poppins becoming a film, and there was actually a big argument, and there was so many elements that she wanted to keep faithful and true to the book, which actually didn't happen in the original Mary Poppins. Actually, to the extent where I've heard that Mary Poppins Returns is a more faithful adaptation to some of the books than the original was, so I thought that was interesting. But there's definitely a lot of source material to go off of in terms of building a third movie. I don't know how that would turn out. I think that this was received well because it's been such a long period of time since the original, and people wanted to see what was going to be new with this new film. I don't know how it would be if a third film came out. Personally, I would probably enjoy it because, as we've all been speaking about, the whole aspect of Mary Poppins being so at base level just enjoyable and entertaining, I like that aspect, and I think a lot of movie musicals should stay with that than try to up stakes and make the plot so complicated. So I would probably enjoy a third movie, but I don't know how that would be received by audiences as a general whole.
Yeah, I don't know either, and it's like you said, we've been used to it for 50 years, and, maybe not us, but people have enjoyed it, for such a long time that, we don't know how a third film would work out. I mean, when you wait long enough and, you see a triumphant comeback that works, it's kind of hard to relive that again. It's just like an Incredible situation. They're already considering a third one. I mean, I don't even know what they're doing with discussing that. I mean, Craig T. Nelson, he's getting up there, there wouldn't be a movie without him, and so is Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, enough is enough. I mean, you don't necessarily need a third one. The only reason they're doing Toy Story 4 is because they haven't, waited so long with the sequels. They've just been cranking out one after another every 4 to 11 years, and it has worked strangely. But yeah, I just don't know how it would work if they were to do a third Mary Poppins film. I don't even know what they'd do. I mean, do we want to see another family not getting along again?
Does Mary Poppins need a franchise? I think that's the real question here. Do we need to make a Star Wars of Mary Poppins? I feel like that's the direction that Disney's going in with talking about a third Incredibles, and that's why the director Brad Bird waited so long to do Incredibles 2 and everything like that. And they're just turning these sequels out, and I don't know if it's so great for the company, because the whole magic of Disney, I think, is kind of waiting until things are just right. And I think by rushing something, we see Disney's kind of downfall in a way. But
yeah, I agree. I think another Mary Poppins film is just only a matter of time, because they're gonna want the money.
Yeah, that's really all that matters at the end of the day.
That a third film will make. I mean, they're not going to pass it up, but the issue is that's going to hurt them in the long run because the story is going to get tired, and maybe that story can't be told again. Maybe they can't get it just right again. One of the reasons why it was so special this time is because she went back to the Banks family. The Banks, if they need her to come back, then that's kind of ruins their happy ending. So most likely Disney would come up with something else, and then it gets confusing, and who knows where it's going to go from there if you can't get all the same characters back. But I do think that no matter what we think creatively and in terms of the quality of Disney, they're going to do one anyway, just because they have the money. They're going to want it. Well, I don't think that they should. I think that because this was such a success, they could invest their time maybe into redoing some other musicals. Were a lot of musicals from that era that if they were to purchase rights to, or if they already have rights, they could make new musicals or redo other musicals and be as successful if they can get it right. But to continue off this is probably not a good idea, but they're probably going to do it anyway.
They want that money. They really do. And speaking of a potential Disney downfall, pertaining to, any potential unsuccessful sequels or remakes, I have really mixed thoughts on the remakes that Disney's doing of all the 90s classics. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Everyone says Beauty and the Beast is great, but I watched a lot of those 90s Disney films, and I don't know if Disney should be doing that. I mean, and what really breaks my heart is that they're doing a Lion King remake coming out this summer. I hate that fact so much that the original and I go back a long way, and I do not want to see it ruined. I don't know how I feel about it, but Lion King's one of my favorite Disney films in terms of, plot and music. I just don't know if that's going to work. Disney needs to... I think they should make other sequels like Mary Poppins Returns, continue some other things of old. Christopher Robin was kind of a continuation too. We don't really know what happens to Christopher Robin, when he grows up. Mary Poppins was kind of a new idea of an original idea. It was a new kind of original continuation. So yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know what Disney's going to do in the future, but I don't know.
Maybe they'll surprise us, but for me, in my experience, I think whenever it comes to a sequel, they should stop after the third or fourth. Like if you look at, not that this is Disney, but Fast and Furious. There's like what,
oh my God,
8 or 9 of them. Like stop,
8. There's a spin-off coming out this summer called Hobbs and Shaw, and Fast and Furious 9 is set for 2020, and The Rock.
9, okay.
Yeah, and The Rock might not even be in it because I think he had a feud with Tyrese Gibson. Now I guess none of them could get along on the set. And it's probably not a legitimate feud. My theory is that it's just an argument over who has the biggest muscles. That's just my opinion. Because what
spin the car the most times?
Yeah, what else could it be about? And of course, The Rock would win that argument because he's huge, so nobody tops him. But yeah, the sequel is always a questionable thing. But I just wish they'd keep it at Mary Poppins Returns and leave it at that. But yeah, like you said, Sarah, I got the soundtrack saved in my Spotify. I have Mary Poppins fever now. I want to go see it again. I can't wait to buy the Blu-ray or download it digitally. But I'll be watching that movie for many more years to come.
It's definitely a movie that you'd want to see again. And I'm sure there's like hidden elements that if you watch it again, it's like, oh, I didn't notice that the first time or something.
Yeah, I know. It's like Alma just said. You said somewhere in the musical score, like they had some more melodies from the original Mary Poppins. I didn't notice that like at all because I haven't seen the first Mary Poppins in a long time. But what did you notice in particular? What stuck with you most? Like I didn't even notice it.
The thing, they have this tiny. It's very small. It's very small details. But in the Nowhere to Go But Up song, they have this like small callback to Let's Go Fly a Kite, which is the very last scene. And that's my favorite scene in the original because they're just, the whole family's reunited and it's so joyful. But it's so nice. And it's like this full orchestration. Like they didn't skip anything. It's not like a bare bones, let's put together what we put together. The vocals are nicely done. Everything about the music is just perfect to me, and I really enjoy that. And yeah, the callbacks, the Easter eggs is what you're talking about. I really like that too, where it's just a film that you could see again and again and find more details about. So I really like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know I said earlier that I like how they didn't do any unsuccessful repetitions of the first film songs, but you need the kite. You need the Go Fly a Kite melody because I think that is the best song from the first Mary Poppins. So I really like how they brought that back, and that was really nice. Was there anything else, or was that the only one you pretty much noticed?
There were a few other ones I can't remember, like off the top of my head. I definitely think there was probably a Feed the Birds melody in there. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I just wanted one final thing.
No, please.
The thing I really enjoyed about seeing Mary Poppins Returns is the idea of seeing it in the theater. I think that's kind of like becoming more and more of a lost art with like Netflix originals, and like, why do we have to go to the movie theater if it's just going to be on Netflix in 2 months, like Infinity War and stuff like that. So I really think that this was a film that you could really go see in the theater, and that you really have that in-theater experience. I don't know if a lot of people relate to that anymore these days.
Oh,
but
I still do. I still do.
yeah, I think it's something that should be elevated more, and I think that this film like encourages that. So I really liked that aspect of the movie.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. It reminds people that the movie theater is still special, and you got to go to the theater for that experience. And I'll let you all in on a little secret on Netflix. Netflix is heavily in debt because they have to borrow billions of dollars to produce original content. So I don't know how long that's going to last. Going to the movie theater is key. We got to give them our money. We have to pay for their highly priced tickets to keep them going, even though it can be expensive at times. It's worth it. You're helping out the studios, and you're only paying for Netflix for $10 a month. And I don't think Netflix is even using that money, to produce their original content. And a lot of the movies that Netflix produces, they're not a part of major franchises. They're not always big budget. Even if it is big budget, they have to borrow tons of money. So in the end, Alma, I really think that the movie theater is going to win. The old ways, they're always going to win again. And if Mary Poppins Returns proved anything, the old ways are always gonna win again. So. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it, and I'm really happy I had the chance to review it on my shows. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have, guys. Thank you all so much for doing this. This has been super fun. I really had fun discussing this movie, and I hope to have you all on again in the future in the brief time that I have left here at St. Rose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Once again, I'm Alan Hills, and this has been Cutting to the Chase. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next week, and I swear we will be back this time.